Nice sunny morning. I'm out in the courtyard. This is the door on the north side of the building and the one we use most, and that's going into what we're going to use as a boot room. So we've still got the lovely floor here, tiled floor, which I scrubbed and scrubbed when we first moved in, and I cleaned the walls as far as I could. So it's still very dirty up there. Mark's done some rewiring, so we've got the new light in here. We've got a hole in the ceiling there, needs to be fixed. So that needs to be fixed. I need to finish the cleaning, scrubbing off all the dirt. Mark is going to fill that door in. So that was the entrance to a toilet. So as I say, this is going to be the boot room. We have an enormous stone sink in here, which must have been from the original chateau. Huge. So this would have been their room for doing all the washing up, basically. So it would have been well water come through to this sink. We've taken out a cast lump of concrete from that corner, which they were using as a drainer. That's original tiling, but not something we feel we want to use. There's some big cracks in the walls that we need to address. Today I've just been knocking off paint just to see how easy this brown's coming off, because everywhere's brown. Brown gloss everywhere, it's a nightmare. So I'll get as much off of that as I can, and I'm going to go around knocking all the loose off, because this is the problem with gloss paint on top of lime render and stonework. The damp just sits behind it and it makes it all really loose. So see, that's a nice big stone block there. You can see the mortar line there. And this is a proper stone block, which then comes out here. So it'll be a nice room when it's done. We're going to have coats in this area, coat hanging, and some shelving above it. That's the access door. We're going to have coats along here as well. We have no idea what this large hook was used for, but I'll hang something up there. That was the original electricity meters that were moved the other day, so that all has to be filled in. Mark started by filling the largest holes. That's more brown that's got to come off. That was our original door into the kitchen. That's all blocked off, needs decorating. And that's the new series of meters. So Mark's going to box that in, and I'm going to paint something on the top of it. We've got a nice window out into the courtyard area, so there's our towered barn out there. So it'll be nice when it's done. I'm in the boot room, so I'm just doing some finishing off. So a lot of the rooms have got to this stage where they look quite good, but there's finishing off to do. So here I've got to scrape off this nasty brown paint. A lot of the house was painted with very thick brown paint. So that's all coming off. That's one piece I've just done. So on a lot of the doors in the house there are two bolts, these little brass ones with a little acorn knob on it, usually top and bottom. So that one's lost his slide bolt, but the plate's still there. So I'm going to take it off of the hinges as well. These hinges go right across the door, quite a big heavy door to the boot room. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tidy up this area. I started cleaning the stones off just so we had a couple of dressed stones showing inside the house to show how big and heavy the blockwork is. So I've uncovered one. A lot of plaster has fallen off, so Mark's going to do a bit of replastering in between so that we have two blocks there showing through. And the other area I'm going to do is this window. I'm going to do the metal rod there, the closure and the handle. I'm going to take all the brown paint off of that as well and oil it. So here's the metalwork I've been stripping of old paint. I've been scraping it off with a chisel, and That went pretty well. It's always a bit of a chore, and there's always lots of touching up afterwards. So I'm right the way down to the bottom now, and this is the debris of what came off. So really, really thick paint. So I'm in the boot room, which I've been doing some work on the metalwork in here, just clearing all the old paint off. So for instance, the metalwork on the window has been stripped of nasty brown paint and it's been oiled. So that and the metalwork on the door, I haven't oiled it yet, but it's all been stripped off of the old paint. And if I show you in this cupboard under the window, this is what it used to look like in this room. So a few different colours of paint, all flaking off, pretty nasty, smells of damp. In these sort of rooms, we've knocked all the plaster off the lower portion of the walls, give it all a chance of breathing, and just done some panelling. So we do the same in there and panel it up so it has a bit of breathing space. This is the nasty brown that was everywhere through the house. So that's what we're covering up. So I've just cleaned off everywhere that I can of brown paint. So the door is nearly finished up. I've just finished this little area where I wanted to expose a couple of the nice sturdy stones from the build, just to show what the house is actually made from. This is the sink from the previous chateau, very, very old. The room's having a Scottish theme, so that's why we've got the bagpipes up there. And this is the moss green I wanted on all the walls, but I ran out of moss green. I've stripped the ceiling off, I've scrubbed it, cleaned it, filled it, undercoated it. This is the first layer of green, and it's pretty nasty actually. It's an emerald green, completely wrong. So we've had some more mixed with this moss green, and that's my next coat to go on there. I've just put a second coat into the back of those shelves, so that's all finished now. This hanging space has got paper from a Scottish book put in there, so that's continuing our theme. The metalwork on the doors has been stripped off, that's just got to be oiled up. And I've got some things I'm going to make just to go on this wall. This is our hanging hooks that we found in one of the rooms here, and we've got a bit of a shoe store, but we're going to have it as a proper boot room and put storage for boots and shoes all around the base. So I'm just using the old sink to do a bit of crafting on, and I'm just going to make some of these bottles. I'm going to cover old bottles with tissue paper and use them to put candles in. So I did one a while ago. I'm going to do another 2 to match in with that. And you can either use paper specifically for deco patch of various kinds. There's hundreds of designs. It's very thin paper. You need a clear glue, paper glue, and you can also use serviettes. So I've got some nice tartan serviettes. I'm going to use some of that as well. You just have to take the layers apart so you have a very thin layer of pattern to go on it. So there are my 2 covered bottles. They've just got to dry off overnight, and then I will put the candles in. So there's very few rules to doing deco patch. It's just a case of having very thin paper, plenty of glue, and just make sure everything overlaps slightly, and you can cover just about anything. I quite like bottles. They're very useful. I usually put them in groups of 3. So I'm just going to make a few finishing touches for the boot room, and one thing I want to make is a wreath out of feathers. So I have a collection of pheasant feathers which I've just put into size. I've got my glue gun working. I found some Hessian type, it's a ribbon, so it's not as heavy as sort of for upholstery or something like that. It's quite a light Hessian ribbon. I don't think I've got any helpers here. Oh, actually I've got one, but she's snoozing on the job. That's Ginge. She does like a little box And we've got a Titchy by the fire and a Millie. So I've covered the polystyrene ring. These are just easily available online or from florist wholesalers and shops. They generally have them in various sizes. So yeah, what I've done is I've not wound it round and round and round, which is one way to do it, just because I wanted to save as much for the next project as I could, or to put a bow on this or something like that. So I've used the minimum possible by not covering the back. So I've just glued it on one edge, brought it round, glue it to the other edge, trim it back. So here's the finished boot room. The ceiling is now matching the walls. There's the wreath ring of pheasant feathers, all just hot glued onto the frame, and I'll just put a few Scottish accents in here. Gillybrogues, that's the hunter tartan. Curtains are up, candles, all looking smart.